with John Phillips.
Oh, yeah.
And you can get it right now.
Johnny don't like the teacher. Johnny don't like the school. One day Johnny gonna do something. Show him he's nobody's fool.
Oh, yeah.
It's 2:05 on the John Phillips Show, Talk Radio 790 KABC, broadcasting live in exile from my living room in Palm Springs, California. And it's time to open up the state of California for business. Mr. Randy Wang's at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, it's not just a fake doctor. Now the CDC says Halloween's not such a good idea.
Yeah, but those scientist types, they don't want us eating candy when it's not a pandemic.
That is true.
You know the one problem I have with trick-or-treating and Halloween? When I used to go door to door as a kid, trick-or-treating, the people answering the door would always give you usually a couple of different candy bars, and they're called the fun size. You're familiar with those, Randy, correct?
Of course.
Yeah. And I always thought that was misleading advertising, because I would be having a lot more fun with that Snickers if it was a king-size bar.
That's a lot more fun of a candy bar for you.
And it's accurate. Let's get the FTC on these people. All right, it's a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a New York Times best-selling author. Treason happens to be my favorite, but maybe you disagree. She's also a columnist that you can read online at AnnCoulter.com. Ann Coulter, welcome.
Hello, good to talk to you in exile.
I've been in exile for a while now, and I don't think I'm leaving anytime soon.
I know, it's very depressing. LA sounds like a drag.
Yeah, well, we're not as bad as Kentucky today, so we've got that going for us.
Oh, I know. The media is so happy about that. Man, they have been ginning up these riots. It really is appalling, the panics that the media are foisting on the country, from COVID to the police brutality. It's just utter fabrication. But it's good for their ratings. People are home watching TV, so they're making off like gangbusters as the rest of us aren't working. And just so nobody clicks over to Netflix or Amazon Prime, let's gin up a riot. And that's basically what they've done.
Well, let's go ahead and listen to some of what you just described. Let's start with the magnificent Attorney General of Kentucky, Cameron, who set off quite a response. Let's go ahead and listen to him address the rioting. Cut one.
I know that not everyone will be satisfied with the charges we've reported today. My team set out to investigate the circumstances surrounding Ms. Taylor's death. We did it with a singular goal in mind, pursuing the truth. Kentuckians deserve no less. The city of Louisville deserves no less. Every person has an idea of what they think justice is. My role as special prosecutor in this case is to set aside everything in pursuit of the truth. My job is to present the facts to the grand jury, and the grand jury then applies those facts to the law. If we simply act on emotion or outrage, there is no justice. Mob justice is not justice. Justice sought by violence is not justice. It just becomes revenge. And in our system, criminal justice isn't the quest for revenge. It's the quest for truth, evidence, and facts, and the use of that truth as we fairly apply our laws. Our reaction to the truth today says what kind of society we want to be. Do we really want the truth, or do we want a truth that fits our narrative? Do we want the facts, or are we content to blindly accept our own version of events? We as a community must make this decision. I understand that Ms. Breonna Taylor's death has become a part of a national story and conversation. But we must also remember the facts and the collection of evidence in this case are different than cases elsewhere in the country. Each is unique and cannot be compared. There will be celebrities, influencers, and activists who, having never lived in Kentucky, will try to tell us how to feel, suggesting they understand the facts of this case and that they know our community and the Commonwealth better than we do. But they don't. Let's not give in to their attempts to influence our thinking or capture our emotions.
CNN's Breonna Taylor didn't like that. Let's listen to what she had to say. Breonna Keeler, excuse me.
I question the judgment of the Kentucky Attorney General saying, quote, mob justice is not justice. He said it becomes revenge. That word, the mob, and the president having said that if Joe Biden wins, the mob wins, that's what he says. We know this is very politically loaded language.
I actually used to work with Breonna Keeler, so let's just keep that little flub between us, shall we?
Well, no, that was good what you played, but more striking to me has been, I mean, when the story first broke of Breonna Taylor, as a regular viewer of MSNBC and CNN, I can tell you what the story was. It was that this was a mistaken warrant, that they went to the wrong house, that they didn't knock, started to burst in, and shot this poor, they always make her out like she's a police officer. She's an EMT worker, or had been. I don't even think she was employed at this time. In any event, they act like, oh, the very force she served, they always become heroes, was sound asleep in her bed, and she was shot in her bed. Well, none of that is true. It turned, and how do I know this? I mean, it's from stories that have run on CNN.com. One of my friends told me, this happened like a month ago. I said, well, the Breonna Taylor case, that looks kind of bad. And he said, no, why do you think it looks bad? And I repeated to him everything I just said to you. And he said, Ann, look it up. None of that turned out to be true. So I didn't even go to, I don't know, whatever sites you'd go to get the truth, Breitbart. I just put in the story, and it was on CNN.com. Now we have the updated story, but that one didn't get quite as much prominence. The Louisville police were wrapping up a drug operation. They were serving simultaneous warrants on a lot of people involved in this one operation. They had loads of communications between the main drug dealer, who was portrayed as if he's just some distant acquaintance of Breonna Taylor's. No, he was at her house in the past few months calling her. When he got arrested, he puts down her number, her address. He got mail where she was. She had been spotted loaning him her car, picking up money for him. I believe that is on tape. He's telling his other baby mama, or new baby mama, or something like that, that no, she picks up the money for me. He's on the phone asking her to pick up thousands of dollars from someone. So no, this was the warrant they wanted to serve. The idea is they can't warn one another, so you go into the houses simultaneously. CNN and MSNBC keep going on and on about why did they do it at all? They already had the man they were looking for in custody. No, it was always supposed to be simultaneous raids. Yes, you get you put in an application for a no-knock warrant, because who knows what circumstances will dictate. It might look like when they go to the house, oh my gosh, there are a lot of people there. We don't want to walk into, a huge drug house where they're all armed and, hello, we're here. So they might need to end up using the no-knock approach, but they did not in this case. They knocked. They alerted. They announced themselves. They said they're the police. Another lie that has been all over MSNBC and CNN last night was, it's the most amazing thing I think I've ever seen. I wonder if people listening to this realize how moronic it is. And that is, there was one witness, a neighbor, which I'm actually surprised they got this. Even before the Attorney General came out, I said, yeah, I bet that neighbor has been persuaded by the community to take back what he said, because one neighbor, the police are yelling, we're the police, we're the police. A neighbor upstairs, which is the best way to hear something like this, sticks his head out and says, what's all the racket about? And they say, go back inside. So he hears we're the police, he or she, we don't know, but oh my gosh, the media want to find out so they can harass that poor person. That person has come forward, in addition to all of the police saying, but we can't trust the police, blue line. No, all the police said, we announced our presence, and a witness heard it, stuck his head out, saw them, heard them yelling, "We're the police." On CNN and MSNBC, this is, one witness says that, but there are 13 other witnesses who didn't hear it. Are you seeing the flaw with that? The fact that someone did not hear something is not proof that it was not there.
I can't hear the TV when I'm sitting on the couch unless it's turned all the way up. I work in radio.
Well, but it must not be on. No, that someone did not hear something is not 13 witnesses. No, I was staring out of my window with my head out the door. And I mean, if you've lived in an apartment building, that is precisely where you would think it's. And most of them were asleep. They woke up when they heard. They've said, we woke up when we heard the shooting. So they announced their presence. Breonna Taylor was not sleeping, nor was her boyfriend, this guy Walker. They were watching a movie in the bedroom. Whether they heard it or not, the way the upstairs neighbor did, she and her boyfriend get up, approach the door, standing in the hallway, and the boyfriend starts shooting through the door. So, police are gonna shoot back. The most amazing thing I heard on MSNBC or CNN yesterday was from that ridiculous human being, Paul Butler, who said that the boyfriend shooting the gun through the front door where the police were was a warning shot.
Well, it certainly
a warning shot.
Do you remember that episode of I Love Lucy where they think that there's a burglar in the building and they put all their furniture up against the door and they are hiding behind the couch and they all have their guns ready to go and Lucy has the spaghetti strainer on her head and Ricky turns to her and goes, "Don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes." And then the doorbell rings and Lucy shoots through the door and she shoots the cop's hat.
I do not remember that. Well, yeah, that's what you don't do.
Lucy had a trigger finger.
What you don't do. And the demands to be able to sue the cops individually, then I say let's sue the DAs individually. Let's take away their qualified immunity so we can sue the DAs in Omaha, Nebraska, who drove this poor bar owner, who could have been a friend of ours, drove him to suicide by their false and corrupt indictment of him when he was jumped by 3 guys during a Black Lives Matter protest, was held in a chokehold and shot over his shoulder and killed one of the criminals who had jumped him.
Let's listen to another doozy from MSNBC. This is Jason Johnson.
I'm so disgusted by this. I'm so disgusted by Daniel Cameron's performance. I am so sick and tired of black people going on the air and performing for violence and white supremacy and state-sponsored violence against black people and claiming their mamas and claiming that because of black men they care about it. This woman got shot in her house when she was asleep. It's like Atiana Jefferson got shot playing video games with her nephew at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like Botham Jean was eating ice cream, got shot on his couch. I'm telling people, I'm sitting here in my house right now. I have an IFB in my ear. I can't hear much. So if cops busted into my house right now and shot me on the air, what Daniel Cameron basically told America is that would be legal. If they thought that there was something wrong, I could be shot in broad daylight on national television in my house because the cops can break in and shoot whoever they want if they're concerned. That is why people are upset. That is why protesters are mad at the media, because they're tired of these discussions being teased out in ways that give justifications for nothing other than state-sponsored white supremacy and killing of black people.
Ann?
I'm not sure it really needs to be said that, well, yes, Jason James or whatever his name is, I know who you're talking about, I recognize the voice. If you're collecting money for a major drug dealer and the police get a warrant for your arrest and to break into your house if necessary to arrest you, and when they knock and announce the police are here, you shoot through the door, yes, you could get shot. I suppose on his theory, let's go back to poor Jake Gardner, the innocent man murdered by corrupt public officials in Nebraska. Yeah, well, he was choked, nearly put in a chokehold, proof of death, at his bar. I mean, what's this idea? Who cares where it is? Doesn't matter if you're in your car, your house, your bar. If you shoot at a cop, you could get shot. But the main thing, I think, listening to that just now, it's so stupid. Don't liberals ever get tired of patronizing black people? Isn't it embarrassing for everyone involved?
That's their pastime, though.
Oh, it's a big hobby. That's all we're seeing these days. But I was watching a lot of that after I loved the Attorney General of Kentucky, and very much contrary to what that tape you just played. I mean, often, obviously, these police departments and towns, they will, put forward, especially black and women police chiefs and attorney generals and mayors and spokesmen and blah, blah, blah. I understand they're often very good, but they're also often, for the same reason Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court will not be the best. When you start putting restrictions on the pool of candidates you're looking at, must be a certain race, must be a certain gender. No, you're not necessarily getting the best. I thought exactly the opposite of that Kentucky Attorney General. He was the best. I was listening to him in the other room thinking, oh my gosh, he's good. And I would say, oh my gosh, he's good if he were, one of the hated white men. He was so impressive. I did not know he spoke at the Republican National Convention, but of course that was another very important point being made on MSNBC and CNN, and I assume Fox News, which is just, so terrified of the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center. So I guess they're doing the same thing. And that is, they attacked this Attorney General because he spoke at the RNC saying, well, he's a Trump supporter. These people they don't have, it's like what the Smithsonian, remember they did that utterly racist thing, I'm sure you talked about this actually now that I think about it, of white culture respects the scientific method and linear thinking and objectivity and cleanliness. It's the most racist thing you can imagine. And that really, this is what liberals think of black people.
Let's shift gears here for a second, because you were one of the few people who called it right when a Supreme Court vacancy opened up in the George W. Bush administration and Justice Roberts was nominated. You said, beware, be afraid, and run for the hills. It turned out to be right. We now have a vacancy on the court because Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. It looks like it's down to two women, Barbara Lagoa from Florida and Amy Coney Barrett from the Middle West. What do you think about the two of them, or do you think there could be a dark horse candidate?
I wish there were a dark horse candidate, and as I was just saying, if you're going to restrict the pool of possible candidates to only girls, you're not going to be getting the best candidate for the job. This is a very unique job. It's not like an award. It's not like winning the Oscar. It's not even like running for office. This is what you want are pencil-necked geeks. Most females, although females, can be very good attorneys. I'm not questioning that at all, but certainly the ones we're looking at, they have lives. I want someone. The same thing I think about doctors. I don't want a doctor who has hobbies. I want a complete dork who does nothing but hang out with other doctors and talk about interesting cases. That's really what you want for the Supreme Court. And look, I'm not going to complain. I'm just talking to you. Don't tell anyone, John. But I am annoyed at this. Oh, it has to be a woman. We're the Republican Party. We don't believe in identity politics. Look at what "let's get a woman" has gotten us in the past. It's never worked. Sandra Day O'Connor, Geraldine Ferraro, Sarah Palin, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris. It's always a bad idea, and that's not because there aren't qualified women or qualified women who will come along, and the best possible person will end up being a woman. As I tweeted out earlier, we didn't get Golda Meir or Margaret Thatcher because their respective parties said, let's get a woman. That's not how it works.
Well, who would you pick?
Miguel Estrada. Or Paul Clement. I mean, poor Paul Clement. He's part of the most hated class in America, white male. But they're both very, very impressive. Miguel Estrada just happens to have the added advantage of having come here as a poor Honduran immigrant at, around age 16 or 17, didn't speak a word of English, and ended up graduating from Columbia and Harvard Law School, and is one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he's exactly the kind of dork I'm talking about. I mean, except in a very charming, he's very charming and courtly and loads of fun and hilariously funny, much like Scalia that way. But, I mean, you could wake him up with a glass of cold water in the middle of the night, cite an obscure Supreme Court case, and he would not only know what the holding was, but be able to describe the concurrences and the dissents. He'd be magnificent, but no, we can't consider him because he's not a girl.
He was in the mix the last time around with W, wasn't he?
Yes, well, that's the other thing that would be great about nominating him. I already think that, I don't know how Trump is going to do in the election overall, but I do think that if there's any group he would improve his standing with, it would be Hispanics, whom I suspect are even less enthralled with the Black Lives Movement than I am, since they're the ones who get beaten up and have their money stolen. So, I mean, that's what the polls seem to indicate. It's what I suspected. And if you throw into the mix, and the Democrats hate this incredibly qualified Hispanic, a hero immigrant. And the last time around, which would be discussed, we'd have to bring this up, the Democrats' memos leaked. They specifically blocked Miguel Estrada from the D.C. circuit because he was Latino. And they thought he's being set up to be put on the Supreme Court. How will we ever oppose him? And the memos came out. We have to stop him because he's very qualified and he's Latino. Oh, and they attacked him, by the way. They attacked him for having a white wife, saying he wasn't a real Hispanic. He came here at 17 not speaking English. Pardon?
They did that to Clarence Thomas, too.
Yes. I mean, ordinary people so don't care about this. This is such a passion of the activists and not normal people. So I do think any Supreme Court nominee is probably going to help Trump because of the simple fact that the reason the Supreme Court and courts generally have become so important is because liberals can't get their crackpot ideas passed by the American people, whether it's gay marriage, abortion, busing, no school prayer. Put it to a vote. No. They get wiped out. And so liberals figured out in the 70s, this is why the Supreme Court went from being the least dangerous branch, as it's described in the Federalist Papers, to the most dangerous branch. And that is liberals figured out in, around the 60s. Hey, even though the Supreme Court has no power, no will, it's just supposed to be interpreting the laws, they rule last. So if we can get some corrupt justices up there who will invent constitutional rights, we can get everything we want without ever having to persuade the American people. So if your use of courts generally is to win victories that you can't win in democracy, well, of course, it'll remind people why we hate the Democrats.
All right, Ann, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Good to talk to you, John. Bye-bye.